4 over 100 would leave me with y squared over 25. 25 over 100 is x squared over 4 is equal to 1. Where's my center?
0, 0, 0,
0, 0.
What's first? The y squared. So we're going to go up and down 5. So if I go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have a dot there, and that will be 0, comma 5, and I will go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, comma negative 5. Because I did those first, I'm labeling them. They are my vertices. That's where the parabolas will connect. So next, I would use under the x is a 4, or you can just count out what's under your y and your x. You can go 1, 2, and up 5. So you're, or 1, 2 there. But I do it. I just draw. So I draw those vertical asymptotes through the corners of my box. But it's the same as counting to the right 2, up 5, to the right 2, down 5, to the left 2, up 5, to the left 2, down 5, and putting the dots in the corners. So if anybody watches Joachim's videos, that's, I believe, how he does it. He puts the 4 dots in the corners. But the point of this would be, here, your graph, your 2 parts of the hyperbola, go back to your vertices, and they follow the asymptotes out. And then the formula for finding focus. Again, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. We add them together. So 25 plus 4. So c will be the square root of 29. Again, a little bit more than 5. If you don't add them together, they're not going to be inside the parabola. So you have one here. And you have one here. And when you're going up or down, you add it to the y value. Well, what's the y value of the center? 0. So you have 0 square root of 29 and 0 negative square root of 29. All right, so I'm going to pause it. You're going to do your complete the square technique. Don't do any of the graphing until we verify that everybody has the same equation. So at that point, I'll pause again. But you're completing the square technique. All right. So over here, you're starting with 16y squared plus 64y. So what I'm doing at first is grouping the positive squared value first and the other variable. And then the negative x squared goes second with the 2x. And I had to move the 47 to the other side. So that's why that's negative 47. Then you have to factor the 16 away from the y. So when you factor the 16 away from the y, 64 gets divided by 16. And that's a 4. Which is my middle term. So then you take that 4 divided by 2, you get 2. You square it, you add 4. But remember the dotted line, always check back here to make sure is there or is there not something out front. So that's 64. So you can see I added 64 here. Now with the negatives in the hyperbola, the completing the square is just a little bit more tricky because you have to take, even though it's a 1, you want to be thinking that's a negative 1 out front. So when you factor the negative 1 out front, you have to take it away from the 2. So make sure you put negative 2x. Not difficult, but it's a little bit tricky. So most people mess up the sign on that one. So you gotta really pay attention. So it's that -2 that I'm doing here in red. You have -2 divided by 2 is -1, put it in parentheses, squared is 1. Again, the dotted line tells me that I have -1, so that's why you're seeing the -1 on the other side. Questions on that? So once we're to that spot, this is where we left off. You again want to make it equal to 1. So to get it equal to 1, you're going to divide every term by 16. 16 over 16 leaves me with a 1 on the bottom. -1 over 16, just leave the 16 on the bottom. So you can see that we're shifting to the right 1, down 2 for the center. So to the right 1, down 2. Okay, so the center's at 1, -2. Now, here's where students get a little confused again, is because of the size of the denominators. It has nothing to do with which one's larger. So this, you're still going to your y value first. So you're going up 1, down 1 from center to get to the vertices. That's what you're doing first. Go to your vertices first. Then we stretch to the right 4 and left 4 in the horizontal to help us get that green box, or in this case it's blue. And then draw your asymptotes through the corners and center. Through the corners and center. My red line here should have been quite a bit wider than what I had originally drawn, but we're not done with this problem, so we gotta talk about it in just a second. I gotta find something here you guys have. This stuff. You may hear people talk about the slopes of the asymptotes, and this is what they're talking about. If your x is first, then the slope is considered b over a. If your y is first, your slope is considered a over b, which I think is really confusing. But if you understand what slope is, it's change in y over change in x, right? So why not just take what's under the y every time and put that on top of the slope? That's really what it is. So don't memorize a's and b's. Just memorize that, in this first one, I see a 9 here. So when I square root that, I put a 3 on top. I see a 36, I square root that, I put a 6 on the bottom, because the y always goes to the sky. 3 over 6 is 1/2. When you get done finding the slope, it is plus or minus every time. Because if you look at the two, the x's that we make, it's the same slope, just one in the positive, one in the negative. So going back, can somebody... What did we finish with? It was...
y plus 2 squared plus x minus 1 squared equals 6.
Okay, so what? Is that the correct equation that we finished with?
Yes.
Okay, so if somebody asked me to do the... If somebody asked me to do the equations of the asymptotes, I would first start by calculating slope, which would be plus or minus 1 on top, 4 on the bottom. So we're going to have a plus or minus 1/4. Then I would go to what's called point slope form. So I'm going to do what's the center, by the way?
1, -2.
1, -2 is where our center was. And so if you look at that x that we've been drawing through the asymptotes, it goes through the center, both directions. So I would say y minus 1, y minus -2, get the y value there. Pick one of the slopes, and then do x minus 1. So that's one equation right there. The second equation is y minus -2. Do the negative slope, x minus 1. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of time. Clean those up into a y equals, so get it into what's called slope intercept form. So simplify everything, y equals something in front of x and plus or minus a number for your intercept. So do that now and then we'll put the answers up there. This is where I left. I've given you these two equations to simplify. Now the work you're seeing me do is just me working on it mentally at the board as far as when you want to subtract 2, that's -8/4. Common denominator, -2 is -8/4 again. But these should be your 2. This is 1, this is 2. And if you go back up above, you can tell which one is which because of the intercept. So if these are the two equations, -9/4 is the slightly lower with positive slope. -7/4, a little bit further up intercept and has the negative slope. We don't always ask you for asymptotes for the hyperbola, but that's how you do it.